I don't think sex work is a healthy line of work for someone to engage in, but I think it should be legalized since that is probably the best way to preserve the safety of those engaged in it. Our society values protecting the vulnerable, and sex workers are vulnerable, with humiliation, abuse, forced drug addiction, and death often part of the job. Since sex workers are arrested and convicted more often than their clients who can afford good lawyers, sex work for consenting adults should be legalized so sex workers can get help from law enforcement without having to worry about being arrested. In countries where prostitution is legal, sex workers can get help from law enforcement. I don't think sex work is a good thing for anyone to do, but legalization would help to protect sex workers. I wouldn't portray legalizing sex work as empowering sex workers because I don't consider selling your body empowering. To me, just the concept of selling something is undermining the value of it because the money earned from it matters more to you than whatever is being given up. Nevertheless, even if it's not a healthy line of work, sex workers are entitled to the same protections as everyone else. People shouldn't be afraid to call the police if they are afraid for their life, just because they are a sex worker. Being a sex worker, they devalue themselves, but that doesn't devalue their lives. They're human beings who have the same rights as every other person who doesn't do the same type of work. The police force exists to protect people from their fellow citizens, and sex workers have the right to the same protection. If legalization of sex work is the only way to make it safer for the people doing it, that is a good choice. In countries where prostitution is legal, the government can regulate it, so the black market can't trap sex workers against their will, at least in theory. Legalizing sex work should vastly diminish the black market in sex work and make conditions better for sex workers, as it seems to have done in other countries in which prostitution has been legalized. Someone putting a price tag on their own body isn't something I like. I understand that it might be the only option for some people, or what they think is the only option, but it never is the only option. There are very, very few scenarios where you only have one option, and you can always choose morality. Whether something is moral and whether something is legal are two different things. If we value freedom, laws shouldn't regulate morality as much as laws should exist to protect people from harm from other people. Laws shouldn't protect people from harming themselves with their own bad decisions because that limits people's freedom and autonomy. Black markets develop when there is a demand of something that is illegal, but making it legal should allow more rights and protections for sex workers. People and lives are priceless, and there shouldn't be a price tag on their bodies. Nevertheless, sex work should be legalized to help sex workers stay safe, because even though they have placed a price tag on themselves, their lives are still invaluable and shouldn't be treated as anything less than an invaluable resource, even if they are doing sex work. For example, if you see a sex worker die in the news, most people aren't as horrified as if someone the same age got killed in the same way who wasn't a sex worker. I think the lives of sex workers would be accepted, or the way of life of sex workers would be more accepted if it was legalized. But I think it is immoral to sell sex. If someone really enjoys doing sex work, they should have the choice to do so, even if it's not healthy, but it should not be promoted. It's not healthy for anyone engaged in the transaction. There needs to be support for sex workers, and they should not be afraid. I don't think it's wrong to assume that sex workers would rather not be sex workers given the choice. If they knew they had other options, they might make a healthier choice. One way society could help with that is by making it legal, so they aren't afraid to call for help.